Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be doing a beginner's animation tutorial using ClipStudioPaint. This is specifically the X version. And if you don't know what ClipStudioPaint is, it is a Japanese art studio for illustration, animation, making manga, webtoons, and more, available on smartphone, tablets, and computers. I'm going to be animating a walk cycle today, which is actually one of the first things you learn in animation school. Although it's something very basic and every animator has to do this some point in the future, it also can vary so much on how you want to animate the walk cycle. So today in this beginner's tutorial, we're going to start with the most basic and simple version. This video is sponsored by ClipStudioPaint, which I'm so excited because the last time I worked with them was 3 years ago when I was still in high school. So now that I have all this newfound knowledge with animation, I can't wait to share with you, and I really think walk cycles is one of the best ways to practice your animation. So without further ado, let's get started. Hi, so now we're here at our ClipStudioPaint setup. Obviously, I already set up this canvas, so I'm just going to quickly show you how I do it. So go to File, and then New, and then when you first open, you probably see Illustration, which is not what we want, so we go to this one with the play icon button, so we can have a timeline for animation. All the default settings here are pretty much what I'm going to use, except for the frame rate, which I'm going to change from 30 to 24 because that's what I'm used to. Then here is my canvas, which is how I set it up. If you're familiar with ClipStudioPaint, you probably already know the top half because it's exactly the same. So let's just talk about the bottom part, which is the timeline. In animation, we measure things by frames because that is how time passes. And here, when I move my cursor, right, you can see how this thing on the right shows which frame that we're on. And to play your animation, just simply click the play button, and then here is for the next frame, and this is the end frame. Then let's talk about how to create a new frame. Basically, you just click this icon right here, and then you can see I have now spawned a new frame. And then to turn on onion skin, here is how you do it. And then you can see I can quickly see what was in the frame before and the frame after, which I can quickly animate. To extend the duration of the frame, you just basically hold the end and then just drag it to whatever frame you want, and then ta-da, it changes. On different animation programs, if you draw in the middle of a frame, sometimes it'll create a new frame for you. But in ClipStudioPaint, the default is that no matter where you draw, it will not create a new frame, and you have to add it with the button I showed just now. So yeah, that's how you do all the frame stuff. And to create a new layer, basically you just click this icon right here. Then you see there's a new cell where you can add things, and this is basically the same as digital drawing, as you can see on the right. It's literally just a different new layer to draw on. Here on the right with the weird square looking diamond looking thing is the keyframe. Of course, there's a lot more other functions on the timeline, but since this is a beginner's tutorial, I'm going to focus on the most basic functions. Now that I talked about all the basic functions you need to create an animation on ClipStudioPaint, now let's talk about how to animate a walk cycle. In any animation school or any animation class, you probably heard of the book Animator's Survival Kit by Richard Williams. And this is what my guide here is based off on as well. So before I really start talking about animation walk cycle, I want you to stand up right now and walk and pay attention to where your weight is, what your hands are doing, what your legs are doing, what your head is doing, and all of that, because we walk so much that walking becomes a habit. We don't really think about how we walk, which we need to do when we animate something. I know that's kind of awkward, but it's worth it, I promise. So contact is basically when you first step out and put your leg down, and then down is when you put the weight on that leg, so then you can lift up your other leg, as you can see here, and then you kind of pass the weight to the other leg so you can move forward and then put all the weight down on the other leg. That's how a walk cycle works. Of course, a walk cycle can vary as well. You can add so much more emotion and attitude towards your walk cycle, but that also is really difficult. So today, let's just stick to the standard. I'm going to be animating myself walking because I walk a lot, so I wanted to draw that. Feel free to follow along, pause this video whenever you want, and if you do end up posting this, please feel free to tag me at sakuraopal, and also if you want to, you can also post it on our Discord server as well at Saku. I would really love to see your entries. Yay! Okay, so firstly, I'm going to create a new folder, a new cell layer, and then I am going to create a new frame. Then I'm going to use the straight line function and just drag along, which is here. And then this will just be the ground and the basis for me to follow. I'm also just going to put my little guide here on the side just so it's easier to follow along. So first let's do the rough animation, which is just no detail, the key pose, kind of just like a rough skeleton, and also the timing and spacing that we'll fix later. Okay, so now that I draw my first pose, we're gonna add a new frame afterwards. And then we're basically gonna keep this foot at the same position. So make sure when you draw this leg, it lines up to here. One thing I like to do is kind of trace over my onion skin sometimes. I know it's kind of like cheating, but sometimes you just gotta take shortcuts and then just kind of adjust it to what you want. So that's actually how I like really do this rough animation as quickly as possible, because sometimes you just don't have the time, you know. There are multiple things I think about while I animate. So the first one is the path of action. So for example, this leg is going here, like it won't suddenly, the leg will become here, because that just doesn't make sense, and this leg is lifting up and things like that. Another thing I look out is the volume to remain consistent, and I do this, as I said earlier, sometimes as a trace over my onion skin. And also I feel like the more you draw animation, the better you get at it, so don't be worried if sometimes it's still hard. If it's easier for you, I also like adding another line at the head area just so I can know if I'm doing this correctly. Anyways, now I drew my down pose. I'm going to keep going until I hit that other point of contact. Yeah, and also let me know if you want to see a draw with me again. I feel like recording this video is giving a lot of my old energy nostalgia, so it's been a while since I did that, so comment down below if you would like to see more. In the rough animation stage, my transfer tool is like my best friend. Okay, so I drew the first 4 poses of the walk cycle, and since the first and the 5th stage are both contact, they're very similar, just the leg is swapped. So I'm now gonna copy and paste the frame. So how do I do this? So select your thing, click copy, and then now drag it to the very end, and then I'm gonna rename it to 5. And then there we have the thing, and we just need to flip it so later on we know it's the opposite leg. Now that you have your 5 poses, you guys can kind of play through it. So I'm going to zoom out my timeline for a bit, then I'm going to drag the end point all the way here. I can repeat the animation and see what we have so far. It looks okay. Okay, so now that I play, the timing is a little bit wonky, so let's just fix this. I'm gonna drag back the ending so we have a little more space. So now you can see every frame there is a new animation, which is not really what we want. Okay, so to change the frame rate, I'm just gonna move things over. So 5 is gonna be at 13, 4 is going to be at 10, 3 is going to be at 7, and 2 is going to be at 4. Oops. So there we're gonna have our timing, and let's see. Yeah, so that's basically like a very rough guide, but as you can see, it's not looping, which is not what we want. So to do this, basically, you would treat the bottom as a treadmill. And when you just put your leg down without moving, it kind of just slides back, right? So we kind of want that effect. So we're just gonna slightly move each one back. So yeah, that's how you make a looping animation, and basically you just repeat that for both sides of the leg. Okay, so now that we have our rough animation, let's start adding some detail to our characters. To make the animation effect smoother, you can also add in-betweens, but I kind of like the more jittery effect, so I'm just not gonna add it. Oh, and since the hair and arms are kind of like their own separate secondary or overlapping action, which is kind of like another set of movement based on the main movement you have. We're just gonna focus on the main body first. Alright, so now that we have this entire full animation loop, it's time to add the hands. And I already added a layer above by clicking on this button, and then this will appear. And then here I have my different layers. I still need to add all of it, but let's just start animating first. So when your left leg is going forward, as you can see here, that means the right arm will be going forward. Because some people do, but I think most of us don't walk on the same arm and the same leg on the same side, so. And if you're unsure about the arms, you can always just stand up and walk and then see what you're doing and then sit back down. Yeah, so that's basically the walk cycle. So let me just add the other arm real quick. Ta-da! So now we have almost our walk cycle done with the two arms. So a takeaway for the arms is that it's kind of like a pendulum. So there are times where you can see it will go in the other direction. Like it'll start going this way, when it swings. So figure out what kind of arm motion you want your character to have. Mine is just kind of like, she's just kind of swinging her arms back and forth, like nothing much. She's not using a lot of force. So that's why there's like a little pendulum towards the end, because it's just kind of like gravity, you know. Now that we have our character, I'm just gonna quickly add like her t-shirt details on the base. Yay! So now we have that, let's start adding the hair, which is probably my favorite part, even though it's very, very, very tedious. Hair is also kind of like a pendulum, it swings back and forth, but since we don't have that many frames, I'm just gonna kind of wing it. It's really hard because when they first started it was really hard to get, but I think the more you just kind of observe the things around you, as I said before, the easier it'll get, and the more you just draw this too. And because a lot of my films have a lot of animation movements, I feel like I've gotten pretty good at hair. And so that's what we have so far, kind of like a girl walking around very happy. And now we're going to add the color, and I personally am going to add some watercolor texture as well by using the ClipStudioPaint assets. If you don't know what that is, quickly downloadable files you can do to enhance your drawing, such as adding brushes, textures, patterns, 3D models, and more. And the best part is there are so many available for you to choose from Clip Studio's community, and a lot of it is actually free, like the watercolor brushes I am going to be using. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly show you guys how to download assets. So go to here and then click search for materials on assets, which will lead you to this website. So yeah, and then you just log in. I'm just going to download something. For example, I want to download this, and it's a brush, so then I'm just going to download it right here. Click this button and then it'll automatically download, and then open Clip Studio. So now you have that, you can go to your brush and then go to here and then download, and then now you can see all your brushes there, and then you can just select all of the brushes and then add to palette, and then your brushes will automatically be in your thing. So now you can go there and then you can now choose all the brushes you imported. Wow, we have that. We can start coloring. So how am I gonna do this? I'm gonna go here and start coloring to what I want it to be. I think I'll start with the skin color, and as you can see, since I did it a watercolor texture, it's starting to show a watercolor feeling, which I really enjoy. Yeah, so animation can be really hard, but it can also just be a very fun way, a fun exercise for you to try out. Like, because I feel like seeing your characters come to life, that in itself is a really cool thing. And a lot of people get really stressed over the little details about what not looks right, which I guess that's how you strive for being a greater animator, which is cool too. but I think a lot of people are just forgetting the joy of animation, which I see a lot in my animation schools, and I know a lot of other animation schools are like this too, so just a little reminder. Yeah. Okay, so now we have that watercolor texture kind of slay. Let's start adding the detail. So that's what we have so far. Now we're gonna add more colors. One thing about animation is to learn how to really simplify your processes and characters so it's easier to animate. Because as you can see, the process is super repetitive sometimes. Yeah, and then now I'm just gonna add my pink highlights. I really like the watercolor texture, it makes it look so pretty. Now we're almost at the finish line. I'm just gonna erase all the lines that should not be there, and then I'm gonna tweak the line art color a little bit, and that will be it. Just did a clipping layer down below, and I'm just changing things that need to be changed. So here is the final walk cycle. Yay! Yeah, so now that we have our looping animation, which you can see here, I wanted to add a little background, very simple with keyframe. So how do I do this? Firstly, I think right now the animation is too short, so I'm just gonna duplicate everything. So to do this, you select the entire thing and then you hold. Then you press copy. When I press down and then paste, it will appear again. So ta-da! So I'm just gonna do that real quick for all of the layers I have. This looping animation has 48 frames since I doubled the amount. So now I'm gonna start adding my keyframe elements. I'm gonna go to the very bottom and then create an animation folder. Here, a new layer, and then I'm just gonna add some grass for a kind of moving effect. So how do I do this? I'm just gonna quickly draw some grass first. So now that I have my grass, I'm just gonna click on the keyframe icon. So then now it will be keyframed whatever I do. Press this plus icon, and then I can just quickly set it in place, and you can see a little diamond formed here. And then I can go to the very end and then add another diamond. So that means it's moving between the two frames. Also extend this earlier so it gives the effect that it's already moving. So now I'm just going to add a few more grass and repeat the same thing. So now it looks like she's moving, she's walking on the grass. Pretty much it with our animation, yay! Yeah, so that's it for this tutorial. Thank you so much for watching. As I said before in a lot of my previous videos, animation is really hard, but hopefully through this tutorial it was a little bit more approachable to start. No matter where you are in your art journey, no matter if you started drawing 3 years ago or just 1 day ago, my biggest advice always is not just a certain art technique, although I do have a lot of tips which you can check out, but your actual mindset. I feel like if you really put your heart into it and you really learn how to enjoy the process and have fun along with it, that's the best way to grow. Yeah, please check out ClipStudioPaint if you're interested. It's a really good software to achieve all of this on the iPad especially. It's very amazing. They offer free trials for different devices and the link will be in the description. And yeah, a little update on my end. I've been posting weekly ever since my summer started and I had a lot of fun catching up with you guys and making videos, but since my third year of animation school is starting, I am gonna take some time off and really take a break and reset myself before that happens. So yeah, but I still will post, so don't worry about that. So yeah, see you in the next video. Bye bye.